Correct. Yes, I see your point. Yes. Like personally, I know a lot of people like they like just the prerequisite of basically the mind for ontology to even have philosophical discussion in the first place. I think the strongest refutation of atheism is it's definitely like the first and second law.
The strongest refutation for I would say the strongest refutation for atheism is that a universe without God is completely impossible. An existence without God is completely impossible. So, tag, right? Having intelligibility without God, completely impossible. Why would anyone have any reason to think that their senses are accurately representing reality? Why would anyone have any reason to believe that? So they intrinsically believe in a God. They intrinsically believe that reality and knowledge exists and is attainable. So any so-called unbeliever, so-called atheist, is a believer, or at least they borrow from the worldview of a believer. There's no such thing as an atheist. There's no such thing as an unbeliever. Just role players.
There is the option of emergent properties, like various chemicals in the brain would emerge the sense of being sentient, or emerge the sense of smell or sight. So I'm wondering if, for those advocates of like emergent properties, how would you object to?
Yeah, so that's the sensory data argument. So like you have sensory data that your mind interprets. Why would you believe that your sensory data accurately represents the reality that exists outside of your mind? And why would you even believe that reality exists outside of your mind? You have no reason to believe that if you're an unbeliever. So you do believe that, therefore why do you believe that? You have a reason to believe that. You have a presupposition that reality exists outside of your mind. And then you have a presupposition that your senses faithfully represent that specific reality to your mind. And then you have a presupposition that you can have knowledge about that reality. So three presuppositions that necessitate a backing for them. Like, why would you have those presuppositions? The only answer would be a world with a monotheistic, foundational referent, eternal reference.
Like, to begin with, I would say, like, I have a mind, and whenever I'm looking at something, I'm seeing it. Whenever I'm hearing something, there's sound. So there seems to be sensory input from the external to the internal self, regardless if it's simulated or not. My current self is experiencing those senses.
The problem is that you have to justify what makes knowledge possible and why the uniformity in nature exists that makes you confident of what you're seeing and hearing. It's stable.
I'm just thinking of like other previous arguments from atheism that I've heard before that have attempted to be successful, like the emergent properties. Is like, if my conscious is emergent, it can be like logically somewhat consistent that like if there's light, the arrangement of like emergent properties would have an eye, and the light could go into that emergent property of the eye, and then the concept, like the vision and experience of seeing, exists as an emergent property of like purely physical things happening.
Even if that was the case, you would have to justify the sequence of events, the order to that emergent intrinsic property, right? Whether it's self-replicating RNA, right, from a primordial soup. Even Christians like Matthew Learns, right, they invoke a creator for the agency needed for evolution to occur, right? It would be nonsensical. It would be less reasonable to suggest that self-replicating RNA just came about randomly through probabilistic means. That's even worse, dude. That's less reasonable position to hold, less rational position to hold. And people like Jazza, I mean, people that invoke a creator at the beginning, right, to set a chain reaction of events to occur, and then he just forgot about us like a deadbeat dad and he just left us alone, right? Still, something had to set all the events in motion, and that something was intelligent.
Right.
You can't escape it, bro.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, if I'm made of only materialistic things, and those materialist things come to an emergent intelligence, could it be possible that the physical entailment of atoms, universes, galaxies, and etc. Have an emergent property of an intelligent God?
No, that's a possibility that people hold. But it doesn't escape the creator, though. You still need a creator for those emergent properties, the chain of events, cause and effect relationships.
That's the first cause argument, the uncaused first cause. Whether
you could
that's
have you can still have a prime mover. You need a prime mover to set the chain reaction in motion.
Well, this is now joined lanes with the earlier conversation, right? Which is you have to invoke something supernatural. Like the typical kind of play out, everyone can repeat it and keep it in their pocket atheist argument is like, oh, it's an infinite regression. What created God? It's actually not a good rebuttal at all. If you've gotten to the point of a God, you've gotten to the point of a supernatural, limitless, creative force. You no longer have the issue of infinite regression. The issue of infinite regression exists within the confinement of naturalism. Once you step outside of naturalism, you solve that problem. Right? We cannot apply naturalistic limits, which, by the way, regression and progression are naturalistic limits. That's where we get that from. Again, that's the second law. That's where we get it from.
So, can I ask about energy can't be created or destroyed? That doesn't say whether energy is conscious or not.
No, it doesn't, right? I mean, I would say the energy and the matter in the universe were created by something external to it that are conscious. Whether or not energy is conscious or a conduit of consciousness, that's a pretty deep question. I would say yes, that it transfers what we call consciousness, right? I think we have a lot of evidence of that, like intuition.
And for the materialist, like versus theist, like as a theist, I'd say God couldn't be created or destroyed. There always was. But for the materialists, they go energy can't be created or destroyed. So it seems like they have a materialistic energy that's very vague, the ability to do work, as a materialist explanation for a non-conscious, eternal energy that can't be created or destroyed.
So that's another major issue and question. Like, what is energy? The ability or capacity to do work is actually not a definition of what energy is. It's telling us what it can do, like what it's capable of. If we have asked you, what is a human? You said humans are capable of breathing. Like, okay, but what is a human? Like, what is energy? And we've actually had this conversation in this room a few times. That's a very, very difficult question to answer. If we're going to be honest.
I was just about to say, did Dicelo come in, or where is he?
I mean, the top levels of academia don't have a sufficient answer, right? They'll all say the capacity to do work. And I guess some of you could even translate over into the context of what we're talking about. Is like if you were to intellectualize a creator as energy, right? Because you then get to this point where you have this mind that's seemingly limited somewhat to a materialistic experience, and now you're trying to conceive of like a supernatural creator that's not limited to the natural world. And so really all we have to compare against is like matter, and we instinctively go to energy because it's like less confined, it's less finite and tangible. So I'm not going to say that is or isn't the case, right? I simply think we cannot fully grasp the nature of the creator.
But it says that he hold on real quick. It says that he existed before all things, and all things are held together through him. And like you start to think like, well, what actually is density? Right? When we talk about like what gives an element its composition, its density, what's holding it together, and you'll find out it's probably an electrostatic force. Well, what is energy? What is electrostatics? What is gravity? Where's all this energy coming from? Right? Apparently, it's coming from the source of all creation, the prime mover, the uncaused cause, and we're all connected to it through some type of conduit or some type of induction. I'm still trying to figure it out myself, but he's the one that's sustaining all creation right now.
Yeah, and
he's
that's
the source
what
of all energy.
With the prime mover argument. If energy is the ability to do the work, that's different for the current activity of doing that work. So you go from a state of ability to do work to actually working. You have that first mover argument because if it's staying still and then starts moving, there was work to put on that stationary thing to have a result of moving through. So you start from the ability to do work to actually doing work, which goes back to prime mover. Yes. Okay, cool.
Yeah, he is before all things, and in him all things are held together. Literally. Like he's what makes the uniformity in nature possible, the homeostasis, the relative, peace that we have. None of that would be possible without him. He's sustaining all life. So he didn't forget about us.
Andrew, you're hot micing, brother. Are you listening? Can you mute your mic?
I got him.
I was listening to a little bit about. I posted some in the chat actually earlier about Pascal's wager, and I always thought it was like just encouraging people to Christianity or something like that, or to God. I weren't sure. I thought it was just like, well, I thought it was a kind of, well, you might as well because the gains are so great. That's what it seemed to me anyway. But no, having looked into it today, it's not like that at all. It's more like, so it was surrounded by, just like in the French Revolution, the bloody, the bastions of rationality, the reason, the age of reason, all these sorts of fucking people. And they like to gamble. So he did all this probability stuff, and he's shown them, look, you go and frivolously waste all this money on shitty odds. Here you've got, even if there's only a remote, tiny little, percentage that there is a God, you may as well believe. And so the whole point of Pascal's wager is to show that they're not rational at all, but actually they don't want to be a God. Again, I think Austin was covering that earlier as well. The point of it. Well, wait a minute. The point of it is that they lead with their passions. They're the heart basically. They lead with the heart, not with their head. That's the point of it.
But Pascal's wager, it doesn't make any sense because it's the idea that you could dupe God. Like, even if you don't believe in something, you're gonna pretend to believe in something just to like check all your bases. Like,
No, that's not. No, see, that's what that's the whole point that he's making right now, which is that it's actually deeper than what it's typically understood to mean. Right? For those who don't know, obviously Pascal's wages are like, what do you lose from believing in a God? If there's not a God, okay, minor inconveniences. You lived a good life. You tried to be good while you were alive. Whatever. What's that really hurt compared to weight against? If there really was a God and you didn't believe in it, well, there could be major losses like eternal damnation, some claim, etc. But the point of it was actually much deeper than that, which was simply to show that you haven't even logically weighed the odds out at all while pretending to be the reasonable side. Because if you were to just believe in a God based on Pascal's wager, I would say that is not actually belief, and that's entirely empty. So, like, I take issue with that. Right? I don't actually think that's the point of it, though. I think the point is that it's supposed to show you, wait, there's something deeper here as to why you don't believe in one, and that is you don't want to believe in one. You're uncomfortable with the implications that one exists. You prefer there not be one. That's the truth.
Exactly it. That's exactly it. Well put.
And I'd say, like, with
I don't think
Pascal's
that
wager, which god do you wager on? Like, do you go for, I don't want to say flying spaghetti monster, but we've heard of Zeus and like Baal and Ra and Yahweh. So it's like, if you're going to put Pascal's wager, doesn't quite answer, like, if there's a roulette wheel of gods, like, where do I put my money on?
Hey yo, Kyle for this idea too. And what up, Witsit? Good to see you, bro. What do you guys think about the Muslim dilemma? Like, let's say in regards to the Christian aspect. Because I do struggle with this. Is like the concept of Muslims just in this context of Pascal's wager, right? Because let's say as a Muslim, right, you believe in the Creator, but let's say you also deny that the Christ is God. And now the Christian doctrine is that if you don't believe that the Christ,
before you know it, dude.
what is it? What is it?
They'll be reading Bible verses before. I said they'll be reading Bible verses before you know it.
That's all right. I mean, I got my Bible right here. But I'm just saying, the idea that
I'm just saying, are we gonna do a big Christian thing, or that's what we're
no.
gonna
We've
do?
been talking about religion and creation for 2 hours. It's fine.
Well, but and I'm just interested, a nuanced point. You know what I mean? To bring it to the idea of do you choose Zeus? Do you choose? You know what I mean? Because that's where that was going. And I'm just saying, I face this issue, and I'm bringing it to your table here. Is the idea that as a Muslim, right? You're not supposed to think that the Christ was God, right? And it's violation, extreme violation in Islam to associate Christ as being even on the same level as God. So in the Christian doctrine, it says that the Christ is God, and that anyone who rejects Christ as God is is committing some atrocious denial. What do you mean?
Well, there's a Christ in the Bible before even Jesus, so it doesn't say Christ is God. It's just people are Christed. It's just a title.
Fair enough, but just in this context of let's say particularly Jesus Christ.
Imagination land. Okay.
I mean, sure, if you want to look at it like that. But my point is that I'm just curious. I'd like to hear what's his take. I'd like to, you know what I mean? It's the dilemma. It's a Pascal's wager, even one step further, in a way. Because which one do you choose, right? Intellectually.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the whole thing, man. It says that the Son emptied himself out and came here, and that the Father is superior to the Son, etc. And so, it looks like the truth is right in between, kind of like mainstream Islam and mainstream Christianity. That would actually be my take. Everyone can disagree, agree. I don't care. Actually, no one debated at all. But I will say, I mean,
I agree
Islam
with
does
you.
say a lot of things. Islam says that he had a divine conception, that his mother was a virgin, et cetera, right? Like that she was perfect and gave birth to him and he had divine conception, and that he is the Messiah, et cetera. So there is overlap there, but yeah, obviously the big contention. I mean, if you're asking me what do I think intellectually, I mean, intellectually, I see the very logical contradictions of claiming that the man that came here and we're told was perfect and was tempted yet overcame it was simultaneously incapable of not overcoming it, because that doesn't make any sense. That defeats the entire purpose, in my opinion. It undermines what he did. So that's kind of where I land on it. I don't know. Jeremy might be right. This is on the verge, though. It's definitely on the verge of what's going to turn into a whole thing.
And like earlier, it was said Pascal's wager is like a blind faith, whereas people who are in the agnostic or agnostic atheist camp would go, I would like to see evidence before I place my bet. So if it is Thor or Allah or Yahweh or something else, I want to see evidence before I place down my bet, because I kind of want that guarantee that Pascal's wager isn't worth putting if it's just a wager on blind faith. So it's
well, I think again, that's. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just do want to make this point though, because Pascal's wager's thrown out there a lot, and Like sometimes when people are asked they believe in God, that's their answer. And like always rubs me the wrong way because if like as deep as it goes for you is like I might as well kind of pretend to believe in one because what's going
It
to
don't
happen?
work
Worst
like
case.
that.
Exactly. That's not legitimate. The actual purpose was way deeper than that, which is to hone in on what is you're pretending to be this reasonable person. I don't believe in God because I have no actual definitive proof or evidence of God. And I'm the intellectual that prides themselves in proving things. That isn't true. That isn't why you don't believe in God. It's actually that you don't want to believe in God. You are uncomfortable with there being a God, and you're uncomfortable with the implications of there being a God because there's a moral accountability there. It's now requires a lot of. Now, what do? You got to try to figure it out. Now you got to try to figure out. Wait, if there's a God, who is this God? What am I supposed to do? What's his nature? What's he expect of me? Blah blah blah. It's much easier to not believe in a God. There's no moral accountability. The actual reasoning behind the wager in the first place was to point out that there's something deeper as to why people were rejecting the idea of a God. Because even in a very crude, materialistic, selfish sense, it doesn't make sense to outright reject the existence of a God. It was not presented as like this definitive evidence for a God. It was presented to show that people were not being honest with themselves as to why they rejected God.
Yeah, sometimes when I hear people thinking like, I'm considering the evidence and I'll hold my decision based on the evidence. And so when people go with like personal revelation, oh yeah, sure, that's valid for you. And so it goes back as like, has there been like public evidence of like something divine given evidence into part? And somebody might want to rationalize like, oh, that might have another explanation. So if somebody thinks God has made a world that's only 10,000 worlds, that's difficult for the person who sees the evidence of being billions of years old. So those two kinds of gods are incompatible. So they can't wager.
Most like when it comes to Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam, even some Wicca cults, they all believe in Jesus. They all point to Jesus. Muhammad pointed to Jesus, and Buddha pointed to Jesus. The Hindu text pointed to Jesus as some type of mystic, right? An avatar, a prophet, right? But what did Jesus say he was? What did Jesus say he was though? Right? And then how many of these guys died and resurrected? That's the thing with Islam, right? They don't believe Jesus was crucified and died and was resurrected. That's my biggest gripe with Islam. Not necessarily that they don't believe Jesus is God, because I don't think he's God the Father either. That's not a problem for me. It's the fact that they deny the whole crucifixion and resurrection narrative. That's fundamental.
Correct. And they actually don't deny the occurrence. They go as far as to say that it did occur, but there was a deception, carried out by the creator himself to fool the world into thinking it was Jesus that was crucified, but he was replaced last minute.
Well, the argument is that they went and followed the idolatrous ways of the pagans before them. That was the whole idea, is that they took to the worshiping of it was a pagan ritual to have the sacrificed martyr, and and all Osiris and all the rest of it. So like the idea was, Islam's argument is that the Christianity itself, that narrative is almost of more of a cultural thing of the people that over time warped it. That's what Islam argues, that like it was it's a pagan practice to worship, and that's what I always harp when I'm in it. We sometimes talk about it.
But that's not what the Quran
kind of weird
says.
I'm just saying it's weird that you're drinking his blood and eating them, and it's just weird.
That's your straw manning, but that's not the Quran actually. Hold on, I have multiple verses I can pull up right now. I'm familiar with the Quran that actually testify of the authority of not only the Old Testament but of the Gospels. Right? It's not till you get to the Hadith, that they start trashing on the writings. When the Quran itself, if you're Quran only, it actually references the gospel.
Yeah,
and the
but even those people, bro, we know they say, yeah, but that's not the real one. That's the corrupted version. The version that people have now that they call the Torah, that they call the scriptures, that it's corrupted. And only the Quran is not corrupted. And they point to things like the multiple authors, which, if anything, is one of the strongest evidences for the validity of the scriptures. Is right that it has like a consistent message throughout, despite multiple authors over a huge time span, over a huge geographical span. Whereas something that's easily much more corruptible would be a singular author, right? But so yeah, you're right that the Quran itself points to the people of the book and to the Gospels and to the Torah. But then Muslims will now tell you, but that book that you're calling that actually isn't it, and that doesn't exist anymore, and that the only reliable text that exists now is the Quran, and then maybe follow up teachings, right? And then what most people don't know is that the Quran was compiled after Muhammad died.
Ironically though, you won't find. Hold on.
Sorry, please.
I just want to clarify this, bro. Come on, man. Dude, go ahead.
I'm asking you to hold on. Come on, man.
All right, dude. Go ahead.
So, like with Joseph Smith, he has another revelation after Muhammad, and do you believe that instead of the Quran? So it seems like a particular person who has status could make a claim that I've got a new revelation.
Oh yeah, and that's super culty and fake as well. Line was up.
My point is that if you're Quran only and you don't appeal to the Hadith, which is the commentary of the people that interpreted the Quran, right? You won't actually find. There's one verse in the Quran that people imply that now we can't trust the Gospels or the Old Testament. And that one verse I actually agree with in the Quran. All it's stating is that the writers of the Torah wrote the Torah or the prophets out of order, that it's not chronological. Which, yes, you're right, it's not chronological. Job is the oldest of all the prophets. Job actually existed prior to Moses, yet Genesis, the Torah, is before the book of Job. That's not a problem, right? That's what the Quran states. Now, they use that one verse to then substantiate that we can no longer trust the writings of the Israelites or of the gospel because they've been corrupted. Nowhere in the actual Quran does it say that. I urge anybody to find that verse up right now.
So check it out. Like, there's a verse in the Quran, right, called like what is it? Ali class. And they call it, it's you know how big the Quran is, right? And they call this short verse 1/3 of the Quran, right? And it says, Allah, who is one, the eternal refuge, he begets nor is born or begotten, nor is there any in him equivalent, any to him equivalent. Like, so like the idea
the
that
scriptures agree with that, bro. That's,
right, and I agree. Yeah, I agree. I can read the gospel is called the Injil in Islam, and it's like very respected, and it's like the teachings of Christ, and it's and that's why the Bible is so beautiful, and that's why I love the Christ. I'm just saying, and like the way is through the Christ, right? He said, "I am the way," so it's like really interesting. I just think that
Yeshua
like
specifically says being equal with the Father is not something that he even longed after.
well, it gets me. It's like, I mean, granted, like I appreciate your take on it. I look at it like a lot of mainstream Christianity, if you will. You know what I mean? Like, let's say, I go to church. Well, yeah, but mainstream Islam. I mean, I think I don't know. I dig. Man, Witsit, have you ever been to like?
You're saying you resonate more with the mainstream Muslim message about that. I get that, but like what Line just said is super fascinating, actually, which is that really this whole argument about how the current scriptures can't be trusted is built upon. So we say extra biblical, extra Quranic. I don't know, text outside of the Quran. I just got before we lose that. I want to follow up for Line here. So, like, Line, if you were to point out things in the Quran specifically that you would highlight as contradictory to the scripture, or something like where would you point to, right? Because where we've now gotten is
not contradictory, but I posted the verses that corroborate the authority of the Torah and the gospel. Multiple verses in the Quran confirming the Torah and the gospel.
Yeah, so those are supported.
Right.
So I'm asking you, is there anything, if we were to take out the other text and just look at the Quran, you're saying there's only like one text that people even really point to that claims that says the scriptures are corrupted? Really, it's not. Just saying that it's not in chronological order, which is actually true. So what I'm asking is, okay, so are you saying that you think the Quran is legit?
No. My biggest gripe with the Quran, besides a creation account that's contradictory to that of Genesis and Ezra and Jubilees, because they have a complete different Genesis account, is also the crucifixion narrative. In Surah on Nisa, they say that Messiah was never actually crucified and he never actually died.
Okay, yeah, which is why they're forced to say that, and this is what's confusing, right? Because that's why they're forced to say the scriptures have been corrupted and that the current version of it aren't the truth. But then, so it's like, well, if the Quran itself is saying the gospels are legit, the Torah is legit, or whatever, there's not even a verse in there saying that the current version isn't legit. Well, doesn't the Quran itself require the current version not be legit, where it's explicitly prophesied, predicted, and fulfilled that the Messiah, in fact, is crucified and resurrected? The Quran itself, if claims that the crucifixion isn't true, requires the claim that the current scriptural claim isn't true, right?
And from memory, I think there's about 3, possibly 5 different Qurans over time, which have slight variances on each other. I'll have to fact check that, but I remember seeing someone like have these documents of like, this was somebody else's Quran, and it's like the King James versus the ESV versus something Quran, like not an exact equivalent, but something in that kind of family. But there's a sort of itch in the back of my mind where, like, I do like evidence, and I can sympathize with those people who, and I know the topics drifted away from, like, those people who I think are sincere when they say, like, evidence matters. And then, like, the Pascal's wager comes in, and that says, like, the reason you're looking for evidence is to avoid the consequences. It's like, will those consequences happen if I haven't seen evidence for a God who will throw down a pillar of fire? Because as far as the people who are skeptical of the evidence are going, well, it's kind of like a threat or a promise that won't come through. Like, believing in a heaven that doesn't come through is like gambling on like when the house wins.
Yeah, almost everyone in here has experienced moments in their life where they feel super blessed and maybe even attributed it to luck. And certainly if anyone has children in here, once you see a child born and grow up and you interact with them, that you feel there is something guiding you, protecting you, whatever. I find it hard to believe that there's an adult in this room who hasn't had an experience like that. In fact, many experiences like that. right? So I do fundamentally believe that someone who holds to the belief that there is not a personable, benevolent creator, it is because they do not like the idea of moral accountability. And they hear conversations like this, how the conversation quickly progressed into us talking about the specifics of, religious claims. And they're like, they get overwhelmed and they're like, dude, okay, so it sounds like to get to the bottom of this would require a lot of time and a lot of energy. And even these people that have put a lot of time and energy into it seemingly don't know, and they're still debating with each other. I don't want anything to do with that. And so if I can avoid all that, and I can just kind of comfortably live in my own mind, and I really don't have a strict moral accountability, I'm more comfortable there. I think, I mean, I'm not speaking for everyone or anything. I just think that is normally why people claim to be agnostic. Most people don't even really have it in them. You almost find no one in the world that will straight up say with confidence, they know there is no creator. They can't even bring themselves to say that, right? But they'll just say, I don't see evidence of one. And it's like, well, did you even logically examine how where you live existed, like how it got here? The answer is no. And that's a lot. My point is simple. It's like, it's a cop out, bro. It's a cop out because the implications are heavy and it requires like diligence beyond the fact. Like once you discover it, you can't just quit there.
And I acknowledge that the conversation went to energy has always, but to create that first effect would require a cause. So it's just like, yeah, that's definitely like the uncaused first chord. It's like it seems like something always has and always will be to turn that energy that could do something to energy that's actually doing something. So I think that's why the conversation moved on, because like you can analyze all the evidence of like chemistry, biology, planetary stuff, and you just come back to that energy and the acknowledgement of like I don't know what, like I'm probably agnostic, sort of somewhere between there personally. So I wouldn't want to make an argument on the agnostic atheist behalf, but I think there are ramifications like for me personally, if I'm going to be held responsible for things that I did good or things that I did evil, or just like sitting back and just being a bystander.
I think you just gotta you have an obligation to go try to figure it out, bro. Right? Like I think that's. I mean, I can't speak for anyone else in here, but I'm not going to claim that I have it all figured out because I don't. I definitely don't at all. And I don't really think anyone does. So, but I think that the major difference is that throwing up agnostic atheist is okay. I'm tapping out of this conversation for good, whereas the other side's like, okay, wait. If I look at the evidence for what it is, it's pretty unavoidable that there is a creator. There's a supernatural, creative, intelligent agent that made this place. It's incredibly abundant. Humans are incredibly fallible and many are evil, and there's all kinds of corruption on the earth. But if I zoom out past that, I see that the actual like laws that govern this place are clearly finely tuned in such a way that it was made for us to inhabit it. So then you have to, if you're honest with yourself, it's like, wait, so who is that person? Who did that? Am I able to connect to that person? Am I able to communicate with that person? Am I able to be guided by that person? Can I discover the nature of that? Or I'm saying person, but that energy, that entity, that agent, right? And like that's the path where I tap out there. I don't cast any judgment. I would say that if you keep doing that, you end up with the scriptures, and you end up finding out that modern Christianity is incredibly corrupt and modern religion sucks, and it's all a concerted effort to dilute and deflect away from the true message within the scriptures. But that's for everyone to discover, I would say.
That's another big problem, dude.
I would agree that a lot of things have happened over the 1,000 years. So if and when like there's a promise of like you will be nourished by the word of God, like it always has been true, it always will be true, and it'll be direct from the author, not through myriads of like translations and so forth. And so if and when God or prayer or divine interaction, whether it be private or public, I'd prefer public. That's the kind of evidence that I would like to see in the real world, where people who are spiritually connected, doing holy things with God, and people in the public seeing that like through either my flaws, God has chosen to use me as a vessel for good in a world that has lost its way. And I would prefer to be a person who's not lost in their ways. So if I could ask other people who have a divine connection or the divine connection to help me publicly with that, I welcome it.
Well, I want to touch on that because one of the biggest hurdles, bro. Yeah, one of the biggest hurdles, bro, for some believers out there, and I'm gonna call you out, SC Montreal, is the idea that God is personable, that He has emotional intelligence, right? That He's sentient. Because a lot of times, the fact that you even try to do that, it's like you're boxing God up, right? You're personifying Him or anthropomorphizing Him, which is oh no, how dare you, right? How could you personify him? He's not a human, and that's I don't know why that's such a hurdle for you guys. Why is that a
Well,
problem?
let me answer his question.
Yeah, sure.
first.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I tell everyone at that point, that's like a very sincere question, and I always tell everyone the same thing, which is just from my experience. Like, actually go, and this is the key, with pure sincerity, right? So that's the part that's very important, and only you can know. But if you truly and sincerely and humbly ask the creator, I would say you should be by yourself, bro. And like sincerely, like as in you get into the mindset that's like, okay, it doesn't actually matter what words I formulate out loud with my mouth or in my mind, none of that matters. If there is a creator, he knows everything I think, everything I've done, all my intentions, all the bad decisions, everything that I'm thinking right now, all of that. Like I'm completely naked. If you actually enter that mindset and you ask the creator to reveal himself to you and just be honest, yo, there's so many people claiming so many things about you. I don't know what to believe. I don't know if you're real. I don't know how you exist. I just want to know. And if you do exist, I want you to show me. And if you sincerely ask for that, I think that it will be revealed to you. Right. And that's my experience. And I know many people that have that experience. And I just think that very few people actually go do that. And, that's the first step, right? Because like in a situation that we have free will, then you can see where he may not fully reveal himself to you in such an undeniable way until you do that. Or would that be free will? And the last thing I'll say is, unfortunately, a lot of people don't get there until they suffer something seriously traumatic, or they see something in front of them that's about to be gone forever, or their life flashes before their lives, or they experience like the loss of someone that they love, something seriously traumatic. And then all of a sudden they feel in this very like deep part of their soul, like there's something deeper to this place. There's more of a meaning. And then they want to go, they don't even know why. They just want to talk to this idea of something above them, right? Like people pray when they get hit, when they're about to die as well. And I mean, hopefully no one has to get to that point before you can just go and just sincerely, almost even like a challenge, but humbly. Um, so I would just suggest that as like the starting point.
Hey, Anvil, I got
would
something.
encourage people who might think like this kind of revelation only comes through something traumatic. I'd say it can and does happen through something optimistic.
Fucking damn it.
Huh?
Hey, Anvil, I wanted to say something to you, just to respond to you. You're in a dangerous place to say you're agnostic, like you don't have any knowledge of God or His existence. That's a very dangerous place to be.
Okay, there's a difference between gnostic theist and agnostic theist. Like my belief is proportional to the evidence in most cases. So I'm not like 100% sure knowledge of God. So there's like a small bit of agnostic theism there. And so, yeah.
So what I was going to say is, a lot of people are in a position where they're in awe and consumed with creation itself. And creation, you speak about public evidence, right?
Yes.
You look at creation, that's your evidence. It's all around you, whether you're in public, wherever you are. You don't need it from another man. Another man doesn't need to convince you that God exists. But if you deny God, and this is why I say it's dangerous, if you continually deny the creator when it's very evident by creation that there is a creator and he cares about creation and he has an order and a morality, these things, when that happens, that creator will hand you over to a useless mind, where you will do all sorts of wicked things, and you will not regard anything good or righteous or acceptable or reasonable when it comes to a creator and a creation.
Yeah, and what I'm recognizing is like my hesitancy to be theist instead of may stem from like the judgment of other people. Like I haven't got the hardest skin, and I'm used to like having different opinions about me, and so sometimes when you're under attack, it's very difficult to be yourself, you know?
Bro, don't start crying. You're in a room full of men, dude. Fucking buckle it up, dude.
Shut up, dude. Let him do his thing, dude.
All right, that's really insensitive, dude.
Now you
Do
can.
we have a crying room? I don't know if we've got a crying room.
Come on, man. Come on. This ain't the place.
Man, leave him alone, bro. What are you talking
Yo,
about?
chill out.
Sensitive.
That's so cruel.
Holy shit, dude.
That's so cruel. Like when I see the optimistic opportunities to do real good in a real world, it helps people live their best lives. And who would want to do that? Wouldn't you want to just live the best life that would impact the most people as possible? It brings you passion, it brings you joy. This isn't tears of sadness, it's tears of joy, opportunity, progress, growth. These marvelous, marvelous things.
Well, you're good, brother. And I would say, I don't know where you were before some of the conversations you heard tonight, etc. But I would say just kind of think about what I told you, man, and yeah, but try it out because I for one, I hold a belief that the creator will never just leave anyone hanging that sincerely seeks it out. North, I think that was North, which is crazy. If that's you, what's up, bro? Like, and, there is an idea that eventually you can be turned over kind of to a hardened heart, but I certainly don't get that vibe with you. So
I like the actual. Well, I don't know what the Hebrew is, but I know because you sent me that passage, right, North, and it doesn't say useless mind; it says reprobate mind, which is, I think, is a much better word.
Let me ask you guys something, if I may.
I would say, like, an emotional God, I don't think is a bad thing, because things like joy or wrath or judgment or even like a God of love, these kind of emotions I don't think are anthropomorphic. It's another sign of like us being in the image of God. And so, like, if we have a sense of judgment or a sense of pursuing truth, knowledge, and judgment, I think that's just another reflection of being in that image.
I agree.
Right. So our intellect, our consciousness, our awareness is like a spark that he gave us that he also holds. Right? He has the same capability, the same, actually a greater amount of awareness, a greater amount of emotional intelligence than we have. And he has the capability, the capacity to mourn, to have sorrow, to hurt, to have sadness and grief. He's not like some wispy mathematical conception, some wispy ether. He's more than that. Go ahead.
Well, I'll go even further to say that if you believe other than that, which would be that there is some type of creative force that created, but it is void of those things, or benevolent, or even like the emotional intelligence that we possess, you would actually have to equate those things to weakness. You would actually have to say that those things are a weakness, right? And that he doesn't possess those, because if they were a strength or they had positive qualities, even in this villainized version of a creator, even from a selfish perspective, he would possess them. So you would actually have to equate emotional intelligence with weakness, or even benevolence with weakness. I would be interested to hear someone try to make that argument.
Yeah, the shortest verse is like Jesus wept, or God mourned that he made creation. Like, it seems like emotional intelligence doesn't allow you to have a tear once in a while. And like, I don't think, like, I did get emotional, but I don't think that's a weakness. It's just like, if something's so true and it doesn't give you feelings, like, could you really say it was real? That's like saying a pin pricked you and you were numb. Like,
emotional intelligence is literally a strength in every conceivable way, right? Like, even when raising children, when reading a room, when dealing with women, when just in navigating every conceivable situation. The issue comes with not controlling your emotions, lacking emotional intelligence or something like that. Emotional intelligence in and of itself is a strength, and that's why I brought that up as like this idea that there's some type of empty creator that like robotically made this slave state and sat and watched us or just forgot about us and turned away. It would require the argument that emotional intelligence is a weakness, right? And I don't really foresee how someone could ever articulate such a thing.
Empathy, sympathy is a strength, bro. And yeah, people find it, as a weakness, and it's about your perspective, dude. It's the glass half empty or half full.
And then there's
the Palestinian people believe in God.
Yeah, a lot of them, yeah, most of them.
Do the Palestinian people pray to God?
Most of them, yeah. I would assume.
Come on, SC, dude. You know that.
So 70 years of them being enslaved, that they're praying to God, and he's not listening to them. Hasn't heard them
And
yet.
people have been enslaved for thousands of years, bro.
Right.
That's what they have. Slavery didn't start with the Palestinians, man. I mean, in fact, they're not even in as bad as they're not really in slavery compared to what most people were. I mean, but I don't have to defend myself in this position. I've been very vocal about it, but I don't see
God doesn't listen to them. He doesn't, like you said before, if you pray to God or talk to God, he will answer you, right? So I guess he doesn't hear the Palestinians.
I didn't say that God was like a genie where you can just rub a lamp and whatever you ask for, you get. I said if you ask for him to reveal himself to you, where you can have a person. If you went and polled all those Palestinians, like you just actually refuted your own position, which is all these Palestinians, despite all the stuff that they're experiencing, they still believe in a God. They still believe God. They still believe they can talk to him. So if I went and asked all of them, hey, do you believe in a God? Despite the fact that you're in basically an open air concentration camp with people that treat you as subhuman and came and stole your land and are ostensibly incredibly evil, they would almost all say yes, they do believe in a God, and that this is even in God's plan, that they trust God, etc. Right? I don't think that they all became atheists after October 7th. So
I never said that. I said that it appears that he doesn't listen to their prayers. Hasn't been listening.
I'm saying they would disagree with you, and I would say You know, I could spin this around and say, well, the whole entire world seemingly has just woken up to Zionism and the evil that is Israel, to the point where in 2025, the U.S. government's having trouble trying to convince people to go to war for them. And 85% of people voted no, whereas just 15 years ago it would have been the other way around. The entire
And
world has woken up to the evil of Israel.
Wits, would you agree or disagree that Zionism is different than Judaism?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there's lots of Jews that don't believe in Zionism.
There's a lot of Jews that are against Zionism, specifically the rabbinical ones. But them, they're worse because they'll be aboard as soon as their Messiah comes. So they're like, they're trying to fool us, you know. Oh no, we don't agree with it. But as soon as the Messiah comes, oh, they'll be on board.
Yeah, the actual evil part of all of it is the underlying ideology of supremacy, right? So whichever, you know, amongst both of those groups, and not like entirely, but it is a very popular belief of supremacy. So like that's, you know, that's obviously not true.
The most evil part of Judaism is denying Christ.
Yeah,
not only
denying Christ and believing that they're literally physically, and believing that they're literally physically superior to all other types of people on earth, when in reality the temple was destroyed. And you know, the Messiah came and said, hey, here's what's going to happen. The temple's going to be destroyed. When you start to see these things, you need to flee. And then a lot of the Jews that rejected him, they saw that the stuff he said was going to happen started happening. They're like, wow, we should have maybe listened. Many of them at that point even became believers, what we would call quote unquote Christians now. And they did flee. And then ostensibly logical, drawing that out logically, you would say, well, like they followed the apostolic teachings or whatever, right, became believers. And then the temple that had all the genealogical records were destroyed. And they were told repeatedly, it isn't about being, it's about being inwardly, quote unquote, a Jew, not outwardly, and that, you know, the creator's no respecter of persons. So it makes sense. And like all of his infinite wisdom, he destroyed the very ability to even track the lineage or the genealogy because he said it didn't matter. You know, and that was like a main teaching. Even if you go to Acts, you know, Peter's vision that's bastardized to say we can eat whatever we want. The whole point of that, when the messengers come to him and say, hey, there are people downstairs for you, and he interprets the vision, understand the creator's not a respecter of persons, had nothing to do with being able to eat pigs, right? But anyway, the point is that we're repeatedly told that it's not about like this idea of ethnicity or what you outwardly are. And they reject this premise entirely. To think it is specifically about who you are, even though they can't even adequately track it. So yeah, of course, rejection of Christ, and then that the supremacy is evil. The belief that you're intrinsically superior to like the rest of the world, to me, that is just wildly evil.
I want to add to that real quick, Essie, that as a believer, we're not guaranteed like complete protection where we won't be persecuted. We are to expect persecution, and all the apostles were basically martyred. Jesus himself was martyred. Their kingdom was destroyed. Right? That's all. Go ahead.
Also, for a bit of encouragement, there are Messianic Jews, and likewise before Jesus, the God of the Jews was saying, like, bring this God to the Gentiles. Like, it's like adoption. You have a biological family, and you're bringing other members in either through adoption, marriage, or whatever other systems and places. Like, yes, you are a chosen people, but your job is to do adoption, because we are a human family, the sons and daughters of Adam, and it's almost like a family reunion. We don't have to worry about our divisions anymore. It's about going into being adopted into that family and working through those issues, and then like getting onto the task.
Your question was, does he not listen or hear the prayers of the Palestinians? And what I want you to know is there's many people in Scripture who have prayed and it was not answered till many, many, many years later, generations later. So I would also ask, what do you think they're asking him, and does it go along with his plan? Because he has an order and a plan and a timing.
That's a good question, bro. Right now, there's like probably about 1.5 million people that are asking for a loaf of bread and a bottle of water. The luxuries that we don't even think of right now. So I bet you most of the people now are begging for the simple things like food and water and shelter and not to be bombed. Can you imagine that, North?
Well, I think it's been, prophesied by, and it's accepted, across the board, no matter who you are, that there are people who are going to oppress you. There's wars, there's famine, there's disease, there's death. All of these things can be seen when we have war and violence and ideologies that have conflict. So across the board, everyone recognizes that this is reality. And there's only one thing that's going to stop all of these things from happening, and that is the Creator intervening.
Oh, okay.
And taking
Are you
out.
lying to me about the freshness?
Oh boy,
Mike.
I don't know. No need.
Somebody get fresh. He's hot, Mike.
Oh, I thought that was Noah.
That's not me. That's Noah.
Yeah, that's not me.
Oh my bad.
Yeah, so if you want to finish.
Yeah, so as long as you have those different ideologies, you're going to have the conflict, the war, the famine, the disease, the death. You're going to have all of those things. And the prophets have prophesied very specifically in what areas and what order these things will take place. And if we start understanding and looking at this and considering these things and understanding that man cannot make this script happen when it leads to their very destruction of their kingdoms and the ones that they're ruling over, this could not be a script they themselves have written to bring destruction upon themselves. And one other thing, just to answer the gentleman earlier, Isa, who was speaking about the differences and things, when we speak about the differences in teachings, we need to understand what the texts say that we're speaking of. I think the Quran says that they thought they killed him, and then people give an interpretation of what that means. So there are Muslim scholars who tell you that he was crucified, he did die. And for instance, if you shot someone and you seen them die, and you thought they bled out and you didn't feel a pulse, you walked away, yet they're walking around 2 or 3 days later, I could accurately write down that you thought that you killed him or crucified or shot him and killed him, but you didn't. So there's so many different things to think about, but that's all I have to say for now.
Hey guys, I'd like to say something. So in the Quran, it actually says that God will test mankind with fear of hunger, wealth, and loss of lives. So the Palestinians understand that and or / believe that they are being tested in this life, and they should expect that. Secondly, God says in the Quran that it is not God who wrongs mankind, it is mankind who wrong themselves. And thirdly, it's upon mankind to fix their own issues. It's not upon God. He's already providing. He's already bringing enough provision, enough food for everyone on earth. But it's mankind who's greedy and doesn't share what they have. So God's already doing his job.
Yeah, one could actually argue that they'd be in a way worse position if they didn't believe in God, honestly, because of what they're going through. But
that's true.
Yeah, I will say, I actually have I'm like, dude, I think we can all agree that like the people occupying Israel and the people supporting them have had their masks pulled off for the world to see. And some would argue that's actually prophetic as well, that all the nations will turn on them, but then that requires the argument that they are legitimately who they claim to be, and then that's also another argument. But one thing that really can't be denied is that something that was pretty sufficiently kept under the radar, where you brought it up, you were just debanked, kicked off everything, called a name, and no one really talked about it, that has drastically changed. We're now like less than 45% of Americans support Israel. So we're seeing a major shift, right?
It's about 50%.
Yeah, and that's a pleasant surprise, I must say. Yeah, everyone's talking about it. Candace, even Pierce is opening his mind. There's like a lot of mainstream people talking about it. So yeah, there has been a major shift in the Americans.
Think about this. Think about this, guys. Think about this now. God says he's drawing all the nations against Israel. So he can pour judgment out. So he can pour judgment out upon not just Israel, but the nations that come against it. So I don't want none of you guys to get caught up in it and to be cheering for one side or the other, because this is an orchestration by God to pour out judgment and wrath. So I wouldn't get involved either way. We know the prophet Zechariah says that the holy city will be taken. So in our future, maybe immediate future, it will be taken. And then there will be a big issue.
Judgment begins in his house, dude, and it initiates basically the last days. But I just wanted to say real quick that, Essie, you do realize that that land was occupied by the Ottoman Empire for like over 1,000 years, give or take, right? There's been a couple power struggles between the Byzantine Christians and the Ottoman Empire, but Christians and Jews have always lived in that land since the destruction of the Second Temple, contrary to popular belief, and that they were also subjugated and persecuted, and that there was apartheid. Even during the Ottoman Empire, Christians and Jews were forced to pay the jizya, and if not, they would be put to death. And this was the thing for over 1,000 years, that they had control of that region, and were considered second-class citizens and subhuman. I'm not joking, right? It just happens that in the 21st century, for whatever reason, in God's infinite wisdom, he allowed Israel to be reestablished as a nation. And now with 21st century warfare and weaponry, there are the tables have flipped, and now the Muslims are getting persecuted. Even though in Palestine, you do have Christians and Jews even today. Go ahead.
No, I'm aware.
Yeah,
of
they're a
that.
huge minority. I mean, they're a huge minority.
Yeah, you know what the problem is, bro. I don't think most Americans or Canadians or most people in the West are aware of the mindset of these Israelis, right? You have to understand, bro, they've been brainwashed from children. They think they're superior, right? They think we're subhuman. I'm going to post a few things, right? Listen to them themselves, bro. It's mind-boggling. They have no feelings for the Arabs. They think they're subhuman. They think that it's.
I know. You're right.
It's hard to explain, man. I'm telling you.
They do. The rabbinical.
Yeah, and many of
Hasidic
them spit
Jews,
on
they do.
Christians when they visit. Many of them spit on Christians. And if you just straight up interview people in Israel, they will straight up tell you. They did a poll, and 65% of Israel voted in on behalf of treating the bordering areas as modern day Amalek, which of course we know they were told to wipe out every man, woman, child, and voted for ethnic cleansing. There's this idea that the Israeli people are all innocent and the government's corrupt, and that is actually not the case, right? There is a ton of evil. And when I start to look at those numbers, it gets very interesting when you look at the 2/3 being wiped out prophecy, and then you see roughly 2/3 of people there fully absorb this mentality, this ideology that everyone around them is subhuman and they're entitled to ethnically cleansing them.
Yeah, bro, it's incomprehensible to most Americans and Canadians. We're not like that.
I do agree a lot with North though, where like I have been calling out Zionism in Israel for a long time. I'll continue to do so because I think there's a lot of evil there. It controls America, all this. But like I'm not. A lot of people have like they started like very vocally supporting Iran, for example. It's like I think Iran's being unfairly provoked and they're trying not to go to war, and we're being fed a lot of propaganda. Iran is not like they have a largely extremist position, right? Like they like a lot of them do actually hate the West. They hate Christianity, etc. Like it isn't like I don't have to pick a side here. I don't want innocent people dying in Iran or Palestine or Israel. That's actually my position. I think that people should definitely fight the temptation of like cheering once we saw missiles finally penetrating Israel because we're like finally the bully's getting hit in the mouth. But you have to realize like there are people there, dude, that they didn't do anything. So I mean, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. This stuff's getting really crazy if you're talking about prophetically, because now you're swooping in with peace deals, and you got countries that have been at war for 30 years talking about peace deals, and in the Middle East. And so I don't know if I see a 7-year peace deal, it's going to be kind of weird. You know, I'm going to get you got to pay attention. So I do agree with the idea that we should avoid getting too caught up in it. At the same time, I will say I think SC and I will fully agree here that I think we have an obligation to speak up for those people, man, because they are being just abused. What Israel's doing to Palestine is wrong. There's no way around it, dude. Those are people. Those are children. Those are babies, bro. They are shooting ambulances. They're shooting journalists. They're trapping people with food and then shooting them. I mean, there are videos of this stuff. Like the most evil things you can imagine, like taking women and children and raping them and killing children and crazy stuff where I don't think my position is to just sit by, right? Like I have to speak out against that, especially when in principle they're taking our money to do it.
Exactly, bro. This is apartheid on television. This is war crimes on your TV. Like this is unprecedented stuff. It's gonna go down in history, and people are gonna be asking you, "What side were you on? Were you doing anything? Did you say anything?" Yeah. On this, we are in full agreement. This is unacceptable. Unacceptable.
If there was a true democracy, wouldn't you be able to vote? Like, let's say you're in the army, would you be able to vote for what side you fight for? Like in like a true democracy?
Yeah, technically we're a constitutional republic, though.
Yeah. I mean, whatever that means.
well, it means we're not literally a democracy. But I will say this one more thing. It's like I don't really care what the Ottoman Empire did or whatever, bro. Because like we're just alive right now. And right now we can all pull our phones out and we can actually watch videos of like babies being like blown apart. Like I don't really like it's just unacceptable what's going on. Right. I think maybe most people in this room are awake to this, but like if you go down like Israel is evil. There is no doubt in my mind that they're gonna at one point have judgment cast against them. Now, if it is in fact the prophecy where those are who they claim to be, the nations are going to be brought in, then like Nor said, like remember, the nations are being brought in by the creator and everyone's being punished. Then that's totally different. Yeah, it's a totally different way to look at it for sure. But either way, there's no denying that state, that regime, and many of the people there are evil. Okay. They are not serving the creator, they're not following the Messiah, they are not on the behalf of Yah in any way. They work for Satan. They are completely lost, working for evil, committing atrocities. Like there's no way around.
If you go read Ezekiel 21 and 22, bro, it talks about he's going to gather up the dross of Israel and Judah into the land. He calls Jerusalem a furnace where he's going to completely melt and obliterate Jerusalem, dude, with his fury, with his wrath. After he's done gathering them up, well, seems to me like he started to gather them up in 1948. Jews of all different ethnicities that deny.
They all started leaving recently. What do you think about that, though? Because there was like a mass, I wouldn't say a mass exodus per se, but tons of people left Israel over the last couple of months.
They can. Hold on there. They can. Because they're not allowed.
First they weren't allowed. At first they weren't allowed, and some rich people were paying for certain boats to try to get off. But they're starting to open that up. And before they shut it down, tons of people did leave. Anyone that had temporarily left, they just extended their stay away. So my point is that they're actually trying to get out of there, and Israel's starting to allow, like even airlines are starting to slowly ease up and allow travel again. So my point is that as opposed to tons of people being drawn in there right now, it looks like tons of people are trying to leave there.
They want to
believer
leave. Yeah,
or
everybody
Yeah,
that has
they
a
sh-
dual citizenship, they want to get the heck out of there. But the latest I heard is they're preventing them to leave from the airports. Apparently, you
see,
can leave by sea if you like, but from the airports, they have them all blocked.
they're told very believers in the scripture, specifically Zechariah. They're told very specifically where to flee to and when to flee. So there's something very specific there. And when this earthquake happens upon the Mount of Olives, when all of this judgment is about to take place, and he's going to war against the nations after judgment has come upon Israel, because he starts at his house first, and then he just ends with all the other nations, and then Babylon last. So you're told there to flee very specifically to the land of Azel, and it's a very specific place on a map that you can look at. And the fleeing takes place after the earthquake through the valley. So they're given a way out, and no one's going to stop them. But these are people who are true believers. These are not wicked people. Yeah.
Where is that now? You're saying like
And
that's still labeled that same thing on the map now?
yeah, you can find it through a little bit of research. It was like a place of refuge, and so it's in Zechariah chapter 14, 1 through 5. And so immediately after that, you have God coming with those people that fled. So there are some of his people still in the land that are righteous, and they're told when to flee. They're given a place to flee to, and then they come to partake in the judgment and the vengeance and wrath upon the peoples. That's what actually happens.
So yeah, it says a valley near Jerusalem. So that it says 2/3, right? Meaning us, seemingly 1/3 will be righteous, and like basically a lot of them that had previously rejected the Messiah will turn to him, or turn back to the Father through him.
That's the thing. In the past 10 years, every single year, bro, the amount of Jews that have accepted the Messiah is unprecedented, dude. In the land right now, you have ministries like One for Israel ministries that are messianic, dude, that are spreading the gospel in Jerusalem, dude, and converting Jews by the thousands. And these people are legitimate believers in the Messiah, and they will seek refuge when the time is right. Even Jesus himself in the gospel says, he talks about the abomination of desolation and to flee into the mountains, right? And this is in the last days, bro, where Israel's reestablished. And I'm not sure what the abomination of desolation is. I'm still trying to figure that out. But you do have legitimate believers in the land that will flee. Go ahead.
Why do you use the word Messiah if you guys say Christ means Messiah?
Okay, so anyway, when you say reestablish, like what do you point to for that specifically?
Ezekiel 22 references a gathering of the nations, not the good one, right? We're talking about the evil ones, the wicked ones. He refers to them as dross, and he's going to gather them in the furnace, which is Jerusalem, to melt upon them, to basically destroy Jerusalem, obliterate Jerusalem, something that we have not seen ever in history. Granted, Jerusalem has been through many destruction, the Babylonian invasion and the Roman invasion, but the type of destruction that we're talking about here, bro, is complete annihilation, obliteration of the land, literally by fire, melted like meltology.
Yeah. So do you guys interpret that to be like the Creator himself directly doing it, or like
Yes.
modern warfare?
I'm not sure. I don't. It could be supernatural, like because it's compared in Deuteronomy as like what happened to Sodom and Gomorrah is going to happen in Jerusalem. And what happened with Sodom and Gomorrah was something supernatural.
Supernatural, yeah, for sure. And just for those who obviously, I know people are starting to get restless because we have mentioned a couple verses, but I will just say this should be like incredibly interesting to anyone right now. Like we were just on the verge of World War III, and the undertone of all of it is like this never-ending, perpetual religious war in the Middle East, and one little bitty secular nation state over there, who has one of the world's biggest gay pride parades, completely runs our Congress. So, I mean, even if you think that people are using this as a script to deceive people, whatever, they're going to fake fulfill these prophecies, right? I don't think that's even possible. But if that's what you guys think, I mean, you would think you'd still want to be interested in like what is the playbook, right? Like, it is very eerie some of the stuff that's going on, some of the pieces that are falling into place, right?
I think Jeremy wants to read a verse.
They wouldn't write destruction upon themselves. That's one point you really can't walk away from. A lot of people they speak about a script and they're just following the script they themselves have wrote, but it leads to the destruction, the taking of the holy city, the rape, the murder, all of these different things that are going to happen. And people have to flee to actually survive. And then you have very specific things that are going to happen, detailed things that we can get references to, like a marker in time. For instance, this man that's coming that's going to build a palatial palace between the Great Sea and the Holy Mountain, the Mediterranean Sea and the Great Mountain, or the Holy Mountain. When a man does that, that's the time that Michael stands up, and there'll be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation. So the worst is yet to come, SE. We haven't seen anything yet.
I think that should be obvious too, because like we just started to get a glimpse into, Israel and Iran lobbing missiles back and forth, and it was like, whoa. I mean, we were watching like a 70% interception rate. Like, imagine if there weren't interceptions, bro, of missiles, and it just kept going on and on. Imagine if people started pushing forward on the ground and started throwing their air forces. Imagine if all the surrounding nations turned and converged on Israel. Imagine if America turned their back on Israel. Like, there are so many scenarios that could happen where the amount of destruction would just like 1000x. And just seeing it kind of start to play out was pretty crazy to me. Also knowing that so much of this was scripted, and like there's a plan to Persia that was published in 2009. It was like leave it up to BB in chapter 5, and it's like pretend that you're seeking diplomacy with Iran, but never have true interest, and use the carrot of diplomacy to basically distract them while Israel strikes them militarily. Everything that happened was in a document called a Path to Persia in 2009. So like everything we were just told happened, and we at least saw some of happen, was all part of a plan. So that part is true. So like how much of this begins to kind of get out of control at one point and really isn't part of their plans? At what point does it fall out of their control and it starts to be prophetic, right? Because like they're like North is saying, obviously it's not part of their plan to bring incredible destruction upon themselves. You saw that Israel
Are
was
you
very
saying?
eager to
Hold on,
take
bro.
ceasefire. What's up?
Bro, let me interrupt you for a second. Are you saying Iran is part of the plan, or it's a Western plan?
I'm not saying Iran's part of the plan. I'm just saying that what we were just doing to Iran was planned years ago. Now,
Okay, yeah.
but there is also a debate though. Like the Ayatollah, what exactly is that? They called up. Supposedly, they called up Trump and said, "Hey, we're about to shoot missiles at the embassy over here in Qatar, and just know we're about to do that. It'll be like 14, 15 missiles, so you'll have plenty of time to evacuate and intercept them. We just want to show the people that we are retaliating, and that they had it up. They had a heads up that we were attacking Fordo days before. I don't know how much of it's orchestrated, but I do know that like the whole allow Israel to be the aggressor while pretending on the world stage you're pursuing diplomacy while secretly greenlighting the attacks on Iran and backing them militarily, which is what just happened. That was all planned. Like that was written specifically in 2009 in the document called a Path to Persia, which is to implement regime change in Iran, right? Which is to take over. So ostensibly, Iran not being in on that, of course. And if you guys saw the leaked Mossad phone calls, where this actually Israel leaked these. Israel released these. Mossad was calling like the second in charge of command in the Ayatollah as they took out some of the higher up and said, "You need to do a public video denouncing the regime, saying that you've had a change of heart, you're turning away from the evil that is the regime, or whatever," or basically threatening them and their families. I don't know if you guys saw that, but Israel and Mossad is literally like evil, bro. They are evil, and I don't know. Like, I don't think anyone that thinks that it's just over right now, I think is being very naive. Anyone that thinks that there was just a 12-day of lobbing missiles back and forth is incredibly naive, right? Like Israel, they took out a lot of very tactical, important stuff in Iran, and they want to overthrow the regime in Iran. But the question is, like, is there a point that something doesn't go to plan? Is the creator going to use like all this stuff kind of going on in the Middle East to fulfill prophecy? I know some people may not agree with that, whatever, but is there a part where it gets out of hand and Israel ends up kind of being a sitting duck and gets converged on, right? Because there's no way that it's just over right now. There's no way.
No, there's definitely no way. There's definitely no way that the Israelis are going to let this go. But I think they finally realized that there's no way that they can win this, right?
But they never thought they could win it, right? Like they always just assumed America would back them up. They know they can't beat Iran. They can't beat Iran by themselves, much less with Russia or China or something. Like they're just banking on the U.S. bailing them out. Exactly. I mean, Iran has 90 million people, one of the strongest navies in the world. Like all Iran did was shoot their old missiles from like the early 2000s just to waste all the military defense missiles of Israel, right? Where Israel was spending like $1 billion to every like 150,000 Iran was spending. Whatever. The point is that like Tel Aviv did start to get popped quite a bit. So did their port city, which was hurting their economy. And then Israel put out a ruling that was like, media is illegal. You are not allowed to release any pictures or videos of what were going on in Israel. Like immediately.
Right.
Yeah. And so I think,
ports. Yeah.
Yep. I think they started getting hurt. And so they're like, okay, well, we pulled America in to hit this site, Fordo, and then a couple other quote unquote nuclear sites. Won't even get into like the propaganda that is nuclear bombs. It doesn't really matter, but and then they hit a lot of tactical places, took out tactical leaders, etc. Israel got a lot done with the help of America in those 12 days. They got a lot done. And I think they're like comfortable with where they're at now, where they think they could implement regime change pretty easily. And then they're like, okay, ceasefire, because now we don't like getting hit back. Right. And so I think Israel's
they're getting their asses whooped for the first time. They're experiencing this shelling that they've done to other countries indiscriminately for years. This is the first time. And you're right. Most of the missiles that they fired and drones were the Iranians are militarily smart. They were to exhaust their defense capabilities, right? So most of the missiles were old ones, and you've seen a few of them. The subsonic ones, those you can tell they look like a streak in the sky. Those are you can't stop those. Apparently, there's no defenses for them.
Yeah, the supersonic ones. I will say, like, they're supersonic ones. They're called that because of their speed, and they're nothing compared to like what we have or like what Russia and China have. Like the ones we have, they're supersonic, and then you can like actually control them remotely, navigate them like in their final descent. And, like Iran doesn't have stuff like that, but Iran has very sophisticated ballistic missiles that they've been building for years, and they were only lobbing their old ones. Even their supersonic ones were old. Were older, right? So Iran has been planning for this for years. I don't know if you guys know, but Iran had made it clear. You know how Israel has what's called like the Samson option. So they have the Hannibal directive and they have the Samson option. And basically, the Samson option, the Hannibal directive is that they'll basically kill their own people in war
before letting
and
them get hostage. Yeah.
Yeah. And that means, and they say it's their soldiers, but we saw like on October 7th, they'll kill their own citizens. Like they'll kill their own people and try to make it look like someone else, meaning that they'll carry out false flag on themselves. Like that's an official military plan. But there's also the Samson option, which was supposedly leaked. Supposedly Iran, now this could all be a false flag, and Israel did this on purpose, I really don't know, but supposedly Iran did a cyber attack against Israel on the side, leaked some of their documents, leaked the Samson option, which we already knew the Samson option was a thing, which is Israel saying, again, I put on pause what you believe about nukes, but that they'll nuke like even allies. They'll nuke everyone before they lose. But nukes or not nukes, that they'll try to destroy every ally. It doesn't really matter how they do it. There's no doubt there are crazy weapons now, right? There are direct energy weapons, all kinds of stuff that you can destroy things with. And that got leaked. They said like New York City, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., and then other ally countries in the UK and stuff. So Israel has already said that before they lose the war, they will take out everybody, right? And like that's kind of what now Iran has their own little version of the Samson option, which is where they say they'll set all the oil fields on fire all throughout Saudi Arabia, all this stuff, and they'll shut down the Strait of Hormuz, which like 20% of the world's oil supply comes through there. If they did that, we would see oil, shoot up to $12 a gallon. If they set all the oil fields on fire, we'd see it shoot up to $25 a gallon, something crazy. We didn't see any of that happen, but Iran said before they lose, they'll do that. So we were looking at something pretty crazy. And now I know obviously you can zoom all the way out and say all this is fake, but we were in spaces talking to lots of people on the ground. I mean, there were definitely missiles constantly in the sky. A lot of them were falling and blowing stuff up. But that part was real. I can't attest to anything other than what people maybe really saw. But the world can have very powerful elite groups at the top, kind of moving everything around on like a risk board, and there be real war, and countries really be enemies, and countries really attack each other and really kill people, etc. It's not like a dichotomy where it has to all be fake,
That's probably getting really fast. I heard, I didn't do a fact check on it, but I heard that October the 7th, those people that were killed there is because they were part of like the anti-war group. Like there are Israelis that were against the war and what was going on with Gaza and what could possibly be going on with Iran. And that's why the Hannibal directive was enacted on them.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe. I know that part of it was because they wanted to blow up a big line of cars near the attack to make the destruction look worse, and maybe something like what you're saying makes sense for sure. One thing's for sure is that Israel set that up and wanted that to happen, right? Where there was a stand down order for like 6 hours, where they allowed that to happen, and then they blew up their own people. Like that's what we do now. And then what did they do? They went and the numbers now are looking like there's 500,000 missing Palestinians, bro. 500,000 people, bro. That's 1/4 of their population. Imagine if someone did that to America. 1/4 of our population. We just sit over here and get so desensitized to it. 1/4, bro. 450,000 or whatever, or close to 400,000, something crazy. 450,000, I think. Missing people, bro. And missing meaning they're under rubble. They're dead. So
most of them are
there were
buried.
2 million people. Yeah, there were 2 million people, and now 500,000 people are missing. The rest are starving. Israel's not allowing food in there. Israel's shooting people that are going there. There are doctors that have come out, and this stuff is dark, but it's so a lot of people are like, I miss the flat Earth. I hate the politics. It's like, what, dude? I thought about stopping making content. I don't care. We're talking about people dying. This isn't politics, bro. We're talking about women and children dying. Anyone that has any platform that hasn't spoken up at all about this is super lame to me. So regardless of what you think of any of it, there are no doubtably people dying, babies dying, and it's bad because we're so desensitized to it. We just move right on. And there are doctors coming out saying that they're treating children with sniper bullets in their head and their chest, direct shots, impossible to be an accident. They're openly protesting for the right to rape prisoners. If you go to IDF Telegram groups, you will see how evil they are. Okay, they brag about what they're doing to women and children. So
yeah, you can Google a statistic where it's you type in 60% of Israeli men, and that's all you type in, and it'll say 60% of Israeli men protest for the right to rape their prisoners of war. I actually posted a Twitter post about that. Can't post it on Discord though.
insane, and that's just because the story got out that they raped a prisoner to death, and there was actually a video, and so then there was international pressure on Israel, and so they were holding a hearing as to whether or not it should be illegal, meaning it wasn't previously illegal, and then there was a protest against that hearing, saying they were saying it's their right to do it. How is that not anything but evil? I don't, like it's just pure evil. If that's not like Satan, I don't know what it is. Raping people, murdering children, like starving children, and then dangling food out in front of them so they'll go and get it and taking them out. Shooting people with white flags, like blowing up hospitals that have babies in it, like that are getting amputations and stuff without anesthesia, like the darkest, most evil stuff you can imagine.
Everything
That's
you're
what's actually been
describing,
happening.
it sounds like the synagogue of Satan.
Exactly. Yep.
Now, but look into reshaping Persia. It's a no-brainer for Iran to go after Israel because they know they're next. Like we've been too public, too bold, too arrogant about it. Like we have plans for it and everything. We've been
Yeah.
blocking them
Yeah.
so bad. The energy sector, they have like the second largest natural gas, and we just block them at every point we can. But I mean, you got Russia, China, Iran.
Yeah, but Russia and
Russia,
China actually
China.
don't want to be a part of it, right? That's the only issue that Iran has. Is like they just made it very clear they don't want the conflict. Like, they have said that they'll help them, but they don't want to. So I mean, I say
Right.
that yeah,
They
it's
have
no
to.
brainer in terms of like you're right there next, but it's not a no brainer in terms of like they're gonna win. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Well, I don't think there will be a winner. If you look at the landmass and then you look at our production capabilities, we're very limited.
yeah,
If
and
we
also this is the thing: Iran won't have access to the world's supply of weapons, but America will. Meaning, like the ongoing production of weapons, America has the whole world at its fingertips. Iran would need China and Russia for that purpose, and if China and Russia didn't supply them, which Russia already offered to supply them,
Yeah, I mean,
then they'd be screwed.
you have to support Russia. I mean, Russia and China have to support Iran because if Iran falls to the West, then it just makes them weaker.
How does this not infuriate people that someone from inside our government comes out and says, "Oh, I was given a debriefing, and there's a list of 7 countries in the Middle East that we're going to take out,"
General Wesley Clark.
and that entire list is down except for Iran. That entire list, and Iran doesn't have a Rothschild centralized banking system, and we're clearly going after them, and we're clearly getting all kinds of wartime propaganda. And then the quote president of the U.S. is coming. Like, we read stories of wars and stuff, and now we're living through one. And we're living through one where we have a phone in our hand and we can jump on X and we can see things super lifetimes. This has never existed before. And then the president of the United States is jumping up and saying, okay, we're going to wait 2 weeks. And then they go and blow them up the next day. And this is after they say, we're going to sit down for diplomacy on Sunday. They blow them up 2 days before the meeting. Like, we're watching our country position themselves with one of the most evil countries in the world. Then it's like our voice doesn't matter. It's a very surreal thing to see. I bet a lot of people, even in this room, have just kind of blocked it out probably.
So you were talking about how Iran would need China and Russia. General Wesley Clark made that announcement a long time ago. They've been stockpiling missiles for a very, very long time. They've just been using the old technology first, in my opinion, and saving the newer technology for prolonged engagement. But Israel cannot do prolonged engagement. I think if this would have went on for a couple more weeks, they would have ran out of the quote unquote Iron Dome stuff, and Israel would have been.
Yeah, but we were already filling them back up. So yeah, they came out and said 12 days, but we were already filling them back up. But Iran was also hitting their actual defense systems. So not just that they had to replenish the missiles that were intercepting the defense missiles, but the systems themselves were getting hit. So yeah, Israel was screwed. But dude, this isn't just an American-centric thing. Like, based on anything I can find, America does have the strongest military in the world, and our tech is superior to like all other countries. And we do not want to see America go in full-fledged war. Also, I'll say this: we can't go on the ground. Iran is like surrounded by mountains. It is like a country that cannot be invaded. We couldn't even invade Afghanistan, bro. Like, when people think that the government's going to come take us over by force, it's so laughable. It just shows that you just didn't research things right. Like, we couldn't even do that to Afghanistan because you cannot prepare for the guns that are on the ground, right? You can't prepare. So you're always getting ambushed. You never know logistically what to expect. And they kept losing. Iran is like that times 1,000. It's surrounded by mountains. They know they're the last on the list. They've been preparing for war for 30 years. Like, they know that this is going to happen. And they know that if they just sit still, they have the Strait of Hormuz. And that's the only naval weakness they have, where we'll have to actually get into the surrounding bodies of water, right? Where they already know to monitor. And we can't go in on the ground. And if you want to implement a regime change, you really don't have many options. You kind of have to go in on the ground. And unless you can, so that's why what they're definitely going to do is what the CIA always does, right? Which is put in some fake leader, create some like artificial revolution, and have the people turn on the government. But what happened was, it seemed like all the people, rallied behind the government after Israel attacked them, and it backfired. I don't know. So anyway, just to say, if America does that and arrogantly thinks that we can go fight them on the ground, we will get decimated, dude. Like, just decimated. We'll have to like drop soldiers. We'll have to come over mountains and then drop them in with no way to get them out. We only have how many? I think with all the soldiers around the world and then who haven't been deployed yet, I think we maybe have 2 million. I think we maybe have 2
Not
million.
even, just under, yeah.
Yeah, and the numbers show that like for an on the ground invasion, not even accounting for the logistical nightmare of resupplying the troops and the fact that you can't get to them and the fact you have to come in blind, meaning like you have to fly over mountains to get in Iran. So they can just sit on the ground on the other side, wait till you come over, and then just shoot you down with an RPG. They were doing that in Afghanistan and stuff, and in Iraq.
I was trying to explain this for weeks now, and every time I try to say it, I get accused of being anti-American or you love Iran. You know the spiel, right? But I hope you guys heard what Witsit just said, right? It's literally a fortress. Now, one thing you left out, Witsit, is getting the soldiers from America and the other places to that battleground. That's another issue.
So that's what I'm saying. You'd have to actually you'd actually have to have them jump out of planes over the mountains, and then they're just stranded. It's not like you can go back and get them. So, and then how do you resupply them? So if you're even lucky enough to get over the mountains without being spotted and then shot down, again, the pilot has to fly over the mountain blind. And they fly over the mountain, they know that they're coming, they shoot them from the ground. If we're able, we do have very sophisticated technology. So there is like a certain method. I've done like tons of research in this recently. It's just kind of annoying to be honest, but we have this one method. There's a few methods, but we have like a sleek method, basically a stealth method where we fly super high and then our soldiers jump out and they just free fall for like 1 to 2 minutes before ever pulling their parachute. And that way the planes are able to go undetected because they're so high. And then they just, our soldiers just free fall forever and then pull their parachutes. Okay. Then they try to land close to each other. How many people can you bring in a plane? You're having to bring tons of planes. And then we have American soldiers just floating in the sky, like sitting ducks, and then landing and trying to scramble to set something up. You're not going to have any tanks. You're not going to have any infrastructure. You're not going to resupply anything. America literally has 0% chance of winning a war against Iran on the ground. 0% chance. Even with our Navy, there's no way. There's absolutely no way. I would be amazed if America is that stupid. But look, we did it in Afghanistan. We did it in Iraq. And then last thing I'll say, I'll stop rambling so much. Like, people are like, they say death to America, and they wonder why. They watched us kill over 1 million Iraqi civilians. They watched that. That was on their news every day. On their news every day, they just watched American tanks, American soldiers just slaughtering Iraqi civilians. We killed over 1 million civilians in Iraq, bro. So of course Iran hates us, and they know that we're next. So yeah, even if they're kind of oppressed and don't like the regime, they don't like America. They know America will just propagandize us and then turn on them, bro. Like they're not gonna, I can't really blame them for not being huge fans of us. Imagine if you grew up watching the news of a country overseas coming and putting their nose in business here and just slaughtering. Like I'm sure we're talking kicking in doors and pulling guns on babies. And I have friends that did it. I know we did that. Where like they regularly kicked in doors.
Dude.
Yeah.
I mean, we turned them into nationalists, and now we're instigating a war that it's impossible to win.
America was the one who actually caused a regime change in like.
Who's freaking buzzing like that?
I don't know. Someone's got their
I got him.
Your mic's open, dog. Yeah, we caused the enemy that Israel has today in 1970 something, when we did a coup d'état, and we literally, this is a CIA doing, right, where we topple governments, we insert our own puppets, we inserted a dictator in office, bro.
Yeah, man. Yeah, dude, think about what America's doing, bro. Like, we think America's not in war. Trump's the president of peace. Dude, we are fighting a war against Russia right now. That's what the Ukrainian war is. It's a proxy war for the US and NATO. That's all it is. And we don't care at all that they're literally going to just run out of civilians that they can put in there to die. They're literally just running out. And we're funding it. Why do you think America's sending billions of dollars to that? Because it's a proxy war for America. And right now we're sending food to Gaza and bombing them at the same time. And then we do everything we do to Afghanistan and Iraq, and now we want to pivot and use those positions tactically against Iran when they obviously hate us, and then we just abandon all of our stuff there after being there for years.
Dog, Trump basically admitted on Twitter, he admitted to regime changes, that America does regime changes as like a profession, dude. Like we're the reason that they have the government. Iran has the government that they have today because of America, going back to the 1970s, for real. Like he boasted about that on Twitter, dude.
Same thing with Hamas. Everyone's like, oh, Hamas, you support Hamas. Israel created and funded Hamas. And if Israel did it, that means our intel agencies helped them do it as well. And then they voted for Hamas, allegedly, in 2006, when like 80% of the population alive now wasn't even there to vote for them. And they're like, oh, you should have voted for Hamas. You mean 20 years ago, bro? Like after you guys created the group, So they used Gaza and Palestine to their advantage against their enemy at the time. And then now they're turning on them. And they're saying Iran is like, they're saying is Iran is funding all of these terrorist groups like Hezbollah and Hamas and stuff. And if you look into it, the CIA and Mossad has helped create all of these groups, and they look at it as resistance fighters. Like they're just trying to fight off like the evil big brother that is the US. So from their viewpoint, they've watched us, which is undeniable, go in and slaughter their family, bro, for years and years, kicking in their door in the middle of the night and holding guns to babies. like a million civilians. I bet you less than 10% of Americans know that we killed over 1 million civilians in Iraq. But we're detached from it. We don't even know, right? Like, but they know. So yeah, like they don't look at it like terrorist groups. They look at it like resistance. Like if someone was slaughtering all of your family and your children and your parents and all this stuff when you grew up, and there was a group of people that said we're going to fight back against them, you would do it too, right? Would you just sit there and watch all of your family die? So like removing this context is super dishonest, and then it's painted as like they're just these radical Islamists, terrorists, and Israel is like this holy democratic nation, and we're standing up for democracy. And that's not what's happening at all. We haven't successfully implemented one democracy over there. We've just destroyed everything and left it in shambles. Of course they hate us, bro. And if nukes were real, which I specifically don't think they are, why would Iran not want to build a nuke? I don't think nukes are real at all. But just look at the story we're told. Iran would be stupid not to build a nuke because Israel supposedly has like 300 something nuclear warheads. They classify themselves as nuclear ambiguous. They're the only country in the world that doesn't adhere to the international regulations and inspections. They seemingly stole the nuclear technology from America. JFK called them out, then they assassinated him. And as soon as other countries get it, Israel leaves them alone. So, like, with the official story we're told about nuclear weapons, it would be insane for Iran not to get them. And the fact that they haven't got them actually shows that they're like doing everything they can to cooperate and avoid war. So when you still man the other side, right, you're like, damn, bro, like, I mean, I'm not going to pick sides. I'm not going to say I agree with the Ayatollah or Iran or anything like that. Because there are studies that suggest that something like 15 to 25% of the 1.4 billion Muslims in the world are what you would call like extremists or radical. That's a lot. Now we're talking like hundreds of millions of people, like the size of America, are radical or specifically think the West has to fall. So I'm not going to say that I side with that or anything, or like I don't side with these groups like Hamas or Hezbollah. I don't side with them. I think that's a trap. But I know that our intel agencies made them. I know why they're extreme because they've been attacked against the aggressor, attacked and killed their family. And so we're put in a situation right now, bro, that's like lose lose. The only win here is to forcibly say everyone has to stop fighting, period. Right? Like that's the only way that we can get out.
Yeah, like,
you debated.
If the nuclear power stuff is real, it's like there's that threat of like mutually assured destruction. Like regardless if it's a nuke or another kind of weapon, it's like if you fire something that's going to kill like 1 million of my people, I'm firing back, and it's just like everyone loses when that comes into play. Yeah, it's just horrible for everyone.
Correct.
Also,
yeah.
that
I don't know.
debated is
Guys, you
super
know that
pro
system
Israel.
is.
Oh my bad. What was that?
Are you talking about the tranny I debated?
The dude, John Walker Flint. I don't know his name, her name, whatever.
Oh,
that dude says it's like not complicated. It's like jihadis want to kill Jews, and Jews have a right to defend themselves. That's his position on it. If you could debate him on that, that'd be dope. That'd be a nice debate.
I'm trying to understand. Are you talking about the one I debated in person, like the tranny, or are you talking about someone else?
Yeah, but yeah. Like he's a dude, though. I mean, I'm not gonna call him.
Of course, he's a dude that mutilated himself. I think he's going through enough. He should stay out of this.
Oh, did you see that? He shaved off his chin and got to keep it. It's disgusting.
Oh no, I don't keep up. I mean, he did pop up on my thing one time talking something like what you just said. Yeah.
Yeah, just now. Like,
yeah. Of course, like demonically possessed people support the modern state of Israel. So
that'd be a cool debate. I found the two things, by the way. The Israeli leaders defending soldiers accused of rape. Like the Israeli leaders' official statement. Because after a bunch of Israeli soldiers were raping prisoners, they got arrested by, I guess, the Israeli version of like their military police. There's like 10 soldiers who got arrested, and then there were protests, like rampant protests, and the protesters were fighting for the right to rape prisoners. So then
I remember that, bro. Yeah,
I have articles about this that you can read about it. That's what they were protesting for, the right to rape prisoners. And then the Israeli leaders came out and they said, their stance on it was that everything is legitimate. In other words, it's war. Everything is legitimate. So they're going to keep doing that. That's the stance on it.
Yeah, it's an evil entity, bro. It's an evil entity on Earth. For real.
Yeah, literally, you can go watch their Telegram groups, bro, and they like post receipts and brag about stuff like this. Like they're full blown evil, bro. I don't know what you guys think. I mean, I will say obviously what we've clearly been primed for at this point is a false flag, right? So it's like, okay, Israel got to take out a lot of people. They set it up for regime change. I don't know if you guys saw, but it got leaked. There were calls from Mossad agents calling certain leaders in Iran, telling them, we're so close to you, there's nowhere to go. And if you want your family to stay alive, you are going to step down and you're actually going to make a public video saying that you denounce the regime. If you hear the video, it's the most evil thing. It's like a demon talking, right? Like it's just pure evil. And anyway, suppose there's a ceasefire, whatever. I don't even think Iran agreed to that. I think Trump just announced it and put them in a position where now they're screwed. Like, think about that. If Trump just says Iran agreed to a ceasefire, well, now if Iran starts bombing them, the world thinks they broke the ceasefire, even if they never agreed to it. I think that's what happened. And that's actually what Iran claimed happened after the fact. And I think that makes perfect sense. But so where I think we are now is Israel was bleeding a little.
Did he
Oh,
cut
sorry.
out?
I was saying, yeah, I got a call, but I was saying a false flag blamed on Iran would change everything. So I'm like looking like July 4th, Independence Day. I don't know. They used the whole sleeper cell narrative, right? Like that open borders, a bunch of people, a bunch of terrorists got in across the border over the last 4 years. There are a bunch of sleeper cells, a bunch of embassies attacked, one of our carrier ships, whatever, in the Middle East, something, right? I think something domestic would, if they know Americans are so opposed to war in the Middle East right now that they would have to do something domestically. But that's where I think we are. I think we're at where like Israel, Mossad, CIA work together, carry out a false flag to somehow justify war because they want regime change, but the American public doesn't currently support it. And it's a pretty dangerous place to be because the last we heard was we delivered a significant strike on their nuclear facility, and so they could just say it was an Iranian retaliation and spin the whole they chant death to America narrative. They hate us, they hate freedom, they hate democracy. Their religion says they have to take out the West, not the West may fall. Ironically, that's actually a popular Judaism belief, which is that Edom, the West, that comes from Rome, so the US and the UK and in Europe has to fall. But anyway, I don't know what you guys think about that, but I think the major parts here is if nukes aren't real, look at how powerful of a piece of propaganda they've been used as the last year, right? Everything, everything they've done is in the context of nuclear weapons and us being scared of them. And then the second really important thing is to keep our eyes out for any false flag and somehow be able to take the narrative back, expose that it was not really what they said it is, and not let people emotionally react into demanding we go to war. Because I am still kind of one of those optimistic people that think that the people have lots of power. I think they really can't do things without us supporting it, and I think that's why they steadily try to convince us to support it, but they wouldn't care. So that's what I think. I think Israel's like the master of false flags, right? So we're clearly in a position now where that would be their best move to say, oh well, look, Israel stopped. They put their guns down. There was a ceasefire, but Iran came back and attacked, and even attacked America, and things could get ugly then, right? So.
Yeah, but even in that scenario, right? I don't think America has an appetite to fight Iran for some of the various reasons we both outlined before, right? Now, of course, Israel wants this war, but how would this war look like? Think about it. You think that Americans are going to put boots on the ground? Like,
No, I think we would
highly
bomb
doubt
them. I
that.
think we would just bomb the crap out of them. I'm like, yeah, I think Americans don't want war right now, but until a 4th of July attack where 10 major cities have sleeper cells activated and there are public shootings or something like that, and then there are quote unquote official messages coming from Iran's government or the Ayatollahs taking credit for it, even if it's all fake,
Oh, a
they'll make it look
domestic
real.
attack, I'm saying. A
Yeah,
domestic.
domestic attack.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah,
then
yeah.
America's saying we're going to retaliate and we're not going to put boots on the ground, but we're just going to drop tons of bombs on them, right? And that would be bad because Iran would be forced to retaliate. They shut down the Strait of Hormuz. They would set fire to the oil fields over there. I think Trump would then come out and say, who cares? We'll domestically get oil. We've been prepared for this, something like that. But it would just be World War III because then you have Iran. I mean, yeah, Iran, Russia, China. I hope nothing like this happens. It's just like I know Israel is like a bloodthirsty cult that will never stop. They violated multiple ceasefires in Palestine. They're murdering babies. Okay, they're doing an ethnic cleansing for the world to see, and they don't care. Their prime minister jumps on camera and pretends to be the good guy and pretends to be the victim. And you actually have
My
a lot of
stomach
like quote
turns
unquote
when I see that,
Christians.
bro. Yeah.
Yeah, you have like these quote unquote Christians in the U.S. and these quote unquote Christians in Congress fully supporting it. And so after I saw all the stuff they can get away with, they're pretty clear. They don't care what we have to say. They if they what they want they get is how they view it. And what do they want? They want greater Israel. They want Iran to go down. They want Iran to be run by some crypto Jew, some Zionist. And um, if that's the case, if they've made up their mind, they've clearly thought this is the time to move. We've decimated Palestine. The world's already seen us do it, so now's the time to go. They've now created this whole pretext for war with Iran. There's actually been like kinetic action between Iran, and they have Trump in office. Like now is the best time ever for them to strike. And since they've already started, right? They've done the Palestine thing. They're going to keep dragging out the October 7th thing. And they're going to say, look, Iran's the one that funded Hamas and Hezbollah and all this. And they went and fired on Lebanon. They're firing on like 4 or 5 countries right now. So it looks like it doesn't make sense to me that Israel's just going to randomly wake up tomorrow and be like, yo, let's stop. And if that's the case, well, how do you get America dragged into the war? You would do a false flag attack on American soil. And I wouldn't be surprised if our CIA does it with them, right? But yeah, I hope none of that's true. I think it's important that we do at least talk about it to some extent, and we are mentally prepared for it, and we try to all immediately like expose it when it happens. This is one of the times I actually don't agree with it. Just completely disconnect and turn your head to it altogether. I don't believe that. I think that we kind of have an obligation to like do whatever we can, whether it's a pipe dream or not, to like not go to war. I don't want to go to war. I have babies. I don't want to go to war. I don't want more people to die. Right? I don't know. Like so, at least that's how I feel. With the little platform I do have, I'm at least gonna speak out against it, man, because I think that the vast majority of Americans on both quote unquote sides don't want to go to war, bro. We don't want to fight Iran. We don't want to fight another war for Israel. So I don't know how they're going to pull it off unless they, 9/11 2.0 us. And the 4th of July is kind of on my radar. It's Independence Day.
I hope nothing like that happens. I think though, even though it's a very good possibility, and that would be a very good like military move, right? But I think the American people are a little bit wiser now. Like this is like Iraq 2.0 on steroids, right? So I don't even think the military has the appetite. I know the politicians have it because they're sold out, right? But yeah, I think this time around it's going to be different. I'm hoping.